He's now the highest remaining seed from the most recent roll-off, so he's going to be bowling in that cleanup spot, that last spot. And we talked about what a good young bowler he is. You saw him in the state tournament last year. He bowled against you. He's very impressive.
That's right, and the pressure doesn't seem to bother him. So being in that fourth position, you might be right. Might be just created a monster.
So Chris and Paul are back, and they will be joined today by Bill Hart from Pepperell, Massachusetts, and Pat Pay from Somersworth, New Hampshire. We're going to be ready to go with 2 games of Candlepin bowling here on Skins when we come back. Don't go away. We are ready to roll here. Another episode of Candlepin Skins. Glad to have you with us. Pat Pay to lead it off. And
Almost a strike. Actually, I thought the 10-pin would go out of there before the, I don't know what the other pin was, a 3-pin. Pat for the spare.
Bill Hart with a much tougher leave for a possible spare, and couldn't quite convert it, trying the inside off the head pin. And the 10 box for Bill. And we are underway. Pat Pay leading for the opening skin, and now Paul Willitts and Chris Boisvert. Paul chops a half Worcester. And Chris chops a spread eagle.
A little bit of everything up there.
Wow, there's a name for every leave here. So the spare for Pat Pay will win the skin, the first one of the day, worth $10. And 8 for Paul and a 9 for Chris. Bill Hart. Turn that one over a little bit on lane 30. Pat on his spare, and this time he touches them all. And a nice recovery ball and a spare for Bill Hart. Another look at Pat Pay's strike. He almost had a strike in the first box.
6 and 7, yeah, 6 and 7. Strange 2 pins for the last 2 to go down.
Boy, Chris got a nice break off that ball.
Yes, he did. He was way down there, the 6 and 10.
Oh, chance to have the skin? No, give it a Pat Pay for $10 with the strike. And a spare as Chris takes advantage. Spare also for Paul Willitts. 4 marks across in the second. Chris Boisvert here.
Sign of a good ball. We'll take advantage of those breaks. Pat Pay working on the strike now.
Another good first ball. This time a little over the top with the head pin.
Billy Hart working on a spare. This ball's right in there.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
gone.
Strike on spare for Bill Hart. And Pat Pay has 3 marks in a row. Spare, strike, spare. Here's the strike for Bill Hart.
It's like the 5-10, then goes the 5, and then finally the 10. That ball is right in the 1-3 pocket. And now both Paul and Chris will be working on spares. Marks all over the place, these 4 balls. Oh! Whoa. 7-10. Chris. 4-7.
Give the skin to Bill Hart, his first, $10 worth.
See if Paul can get the wood working. Not quite.
Chris converts, though. $10 for Paul Willitts. Hart working on a strike. A little short that time. Oh, my! It's easy to score Pat's great game so far. Spare, strike, spare, strike. Wow. $9 for Bill. Pat Pay again. You got to look at him, and there's the ball he just threw. Boy.
Well, $14. We have 9 marks. This guy's not fooling around. Now Chris on lane 30.
On his spare.
5, 7, 10. Doesn't sound good, but with the wood position to where it is, he's got a shot at making this.
Give the skin to Pat Pay. $15 in the fourth.
I think his problem pin may be the 5.
Nope.
Yes, it is.
And no spare for Paul either. $9 for Chris, and the 10 for Paul Willitts. So Pat Pay out to the early lead here, getting 20 at a time.
And 3 skins already. In there again.
Chance for 20 more.
Really hard right in there. His bid for a strike. Just the 9 pin.
Pat for the spare. Ooh, he went a little too far left.
He knew as soon as he threw that one, he needed some help on the 3 pin. The 2 pin, I should say. Just pulled it to the left.
Spare for Bill Hart in the fifth. Pat will take a 9 and 88 through 5 for Pat Pay, as he finally has an open box. Paul Willitts now.
Oh, look a little better than that. 6, 7, 10. But the wood is in between this, the 4 and 7. That could slap it off the left sidewall and come across. Now he's flush on the 4 pin. 4 horsemen for Chris.
For the carryover? No. The skin goes to Bill Hart. We've had a skin one in every box so far. Couple of 10s, and that takes us to our first time out. Pat Pay off to a quick start, but everybody else not far behind. Off to a good match here on Candlepin Skins. We'll be back. Bill Hart will be working on a spare as we come back. Sixth box worth $15. Pat Pay missing the head pin.
For the first time, I believe, too. Yeah, 88 half here. Oh, Bill, 2 full on the 3 pin, left the 6. Pat likewise flush on the head pin.
Bill Hart takes 9. And Pat will take 8. Bill and Pat have been taking all the skins, too, so far. Chance here, though, for Paul or Chris. Chris didn't really get a lot on that ball, judging on where it hit. Paul Willitts does, though.
Wow. Scrambles 9 of them, leaves the king, the 5 pin. Chance for Paul, take the skin.
Got it with the 10 box. Maybe. Yeah, that was a tough shot for
That was
Chris.
a spare, I think, for
Oh, I take it back. You're right. That's right. When you knock them all down with 2 balls, that's a spare,
You
right?
got it.
And 3 balls is a 10 box.
You're learning.
Okay.
Stay with me.
$15 skin for Paul Willitts and a near strike for Pat Pay again. No. Oh, great shot there for a spare for Bill Hart. Pat got robbed on his, though, and he'll have to take a 10. Bill Hart shot, though.
Usually difficult with that one in the back, but he just drove the head pin right straight back. Paul will be filling a spare in the 6th. And a spare is up for the skin, so it's going to take a strike or a spare to carry it over. Lug out.
This way for an 8 fill. Nope. And give that skin to Bill Hart. It's the first of our $25 skins. Nines for Paul and Chris. You see, we've had a skin one in every box so far. That's very unusual. No carryovers at all. Bill Hart on a spare, drops 9. Oh, Pat Pay. 3rd strike already. Spare for Bill Hart. He just kept it on the lane long enough. Pat Pay strikes again. Literally. Chris Boisvert waiting for the reset on lane 30. Gives us a chance to remind you about tomorrow at noon here on the Winds of New England, Park Place Lanes. Candlepin Stars and Strikes. We'll be at Park Place Lanes for our usual Sunday get-together as we continue the search for what will eventually be our final qualifier for the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. And yes, folks, it will be the 8th Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions coming up soon here on the Winds of New England. And also, while we're talking about things that are coming up, big events, the New Hampshire State Candlepin Championship returns to the Winds of New England. We were talking about Chris and his appearance in that event last year, and it returns here on TV 50. Several weeks from now, we'll give you all the particulars as it gets a little closer, but we will have the men's and women's final, a slightly different format this year.
That's right.
Than last year, but we'll get to that as we get a little bit closer to it. And perhaps we should get to a timeout here while we wait for the lane to reset. We'll take a break here from Londonderry Bowling Center and come back on Candlepin Skins. Don't go away.
When the sun is blazing and the summer gets hot, Water Country's a very cool spot. There's no better place to feel and be young. Water Country, have some fun.
This summer, try our 2 fantastic new rides, Thunder Falls and Wild Canyon, New England's only 5-person raft rides. Now the whole family can ride together. Get to Water Country and check it out.
Water Country, Water Country, Water Country, have some fun.
We are back up and running here. And Chris Boisvert in the 8th. And there's the strike to carry over our first skin of the day. As that matches the strike by Pat Pay earlier, and almost a 3rd one for Paul Willitts. I I knew we'd get a carryover eventually. Nope, Paul misses the single. And takes it for the 10. The strikes create the carryover, and here's the one that Chris threw. A little full, actually. Kicking out the 4 and the 10. Box number 9 is worth $50, and Pat Pay working on a strike drops 8. Bill Hart working on a spare gets some help. 7. Pat can't quite kick it all the way over to the 7. Bill was a little too good on that shot. I'm gonna have to have a piece of wood checked on Pat Pay's shot before he gets a chance. At the 7 pin, Pat having a heck of a string. He's at 134 right now. Cindy Sissom getting a hand from the folks here at Park Place for the housekeeping work.
Oh, really at Londonderry, but they did give her a hand.
Well, no, it was so good. All the way over at Park Place, they were giving her a hand.
Oh, I see.
Just play along, Dan. How many times have I told you that? Paul Willitts after missing a single in the last box. And now Chris Boisvert on a strike.
Paul Willitts for the spare. Oh, that close, leaves the 10.
10 could win the skin here. Oh, so could that spare, and there it is. $50 skin for Chris Boisvert. 10 bucks for Paul. Here's another look. The 1, 3, and 10 for $50. First skin of the day for Chris. And now the 10th box worth $50. Well, let's see. Assess the damage here. First, Bill Hart, the 2, 4, 7, and 10. And now Pat Pay on the 2, 4, 6. Not much happening.
Now Bill on the 4, 7, 10 again.
Oh, got it for the 10.
Now Pat on the 2, 4, 6 again.
9 bucks for Pat. 143 for Pat Pay. 138 for Bill Hart, thanks to this 10 bucks. So Pat and Bill running 1 and 2 right now.
$50 skin, 10 boxes. What's leading?
On a spare, Chris fires 6. No. Well. Paul can win the skin. Oh, he almost had it. Well, 10 leads right now. It's still there. And there is the carryover in the 10th. So we will go to the second game with a $60 skin. 143 for Pat Pay to lead the way into game 2 when we come back. All 4 bowlers are on the Skins prize money tote board here after game 1. And leading in total pinfall, the man on the line right now. It's Pat Pay with a 143 opening game. Well, you know, even with the 143, Dan, he had 4 marks in a row to start the game. Then he only had 1 after that, but he had opportunities for
That's right.
for other strikes, especially. Oh. And there's a great shot. Oh, if you just tuned in, that's what Pat Pay's been doing all day. Great shot there for the spare. Just made it look routine.
Billy Hart, lane 29. He'll shoot at the 3, 5, 6, 10.
This is a carryover skin, remember. A $60 skin to start this game. $7 for Bill. Paul Willitts and Chris Boisvert with some catch-up work to do in order to have a chance at coming back next week. Paul Willitts, the solid 9-drop. Paul has only 2 marks. He pinned very well in the first game. He had just 2 marks, but he wound up with a 113, and he starts the second game with a spare.
Well, it's going to take a strike by Chris Boisvert to win the skin outright. Otherwise, we'll have another carryover.
Off target to the right, and hold on. Nope. Good spare possibility, though. The skin will carry over. Yes, it is. So it's now $70 as we go to box number 2.
Pat Pay working on a spare. That great spare he converted the first box. This looks like it's 7, the 1, 3, and 7 pins left. Don't like the position of that wood, though. You almost have to go to the right of the, left of the head pin, have the ball go down. Don't think you can split them.
Ooh. Candlepin Skins here on the Winds of New England, brought to you in part by the Carphone Store. Stop in, DW Highway South, Lamplighter Square, right across from the Pheasant Lane Mall, and say hello to our good friend Vince Coletti and all the folks at the Carphone Store of Nashua. Proud sponsors here on Candlepin Skins.
Three and 5 pins left for Bill.
Yes, sir. Spare in the second. Leads for the skin. Paul Willitts now working on a spare. I mentioned Paul and Chris had catching up to do, and they both put spares up, so let's see if they can capitalize. Paul will take 8.
1 in the 3 pins.
And gets the spare, creating another possible carryover. Chris Boisvert with 5 marks today, including the one he's working on right now. Just a little bit short of the head pin, but it didn't matter, did it? It didn't matter. Only the 10 pin remains. Another spare, 3 in a row. We roll over the money again, and it's now $80 in box number 3. And since Pat Pay was the overall leader and everybody else marked in that second box, making things a little closer.
You know, Pat Pay, like you said, is the only one without a mark. And this time he has a chance to put a mark up by knocking this 7 pin down. Ooh.
Oh, no, that's the second single that Pat has missed.
Looks like he slipped a little bit on his 3rd step at the on the approach.
Covers it for the 10. So now we'll fill each of those 3 marks. First, Bill Hart.
It's only 1 pin ahead ahead of Chris in second place, but only 15 behind Pat Pay.
5 on his spare. No, Bill turned away. He saw a little disgusted with his aim on that ball. And takes an 8. Paul Willitts and Chris Boisvert starting this game with consecutive spares, pulling closer. Oh, good first ball, and I heard somebody say, there's one.
I think that was Paul's son. I was referring to maybe that was a strike. That's what it looks like it's going to take to win a skin.
Oh,
that
no.
one broke a little sharper than he wanted. Just broke to the left of the 7-pin. That would have been 3 in a row for Paul. That's what he wanted.
2 singles missed in this third frame.
And a pair of 10s up for Chris. Not only win the skin with a mark, but it helped his cause too. He was a low man, but he'll certainly now pass Paul Willitts. Well, maybe not.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. How do you do that? He knocked out the 1, 2, 3, and 4. How do you do that? Especially on a ball that looked that good. Well, I dare say we're going to have another carryover.
I would say so.
Eight bucks for Chris.
Move ahead of Paul Willitts, but not quite as many as he thought after he let that first ball go. Just 4.
The fourth box now worth $95.
And 14 pins separate top to bottom. I'm sorry, 20 pins. Paul Willitts is at 160.
Half Worcester. Pat Pay works at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. A veteran of the Candlepin Wars. Seven.
Just 7. So he's backing up a little bit to the other 3 bowlers. Opened with a spare 7, as you can see, then 2 10 boxes, and now a 7.
Oh, big ball for Bill Hart, and that may be worth $95 if it stands. Strike in the fourth.
Paul's been throwing some balls right in there. See if he can duplicate the strike to keep the carryovers going.
Pretty good ball. Oh, my. And this time, not even a single, it's a split.
Now I have to slap that wood in front of the 7-pin, have it come back across, because another one in the channel. And that's the other side. See if he hits it if it comes out. We're never going to know. It's too high in it.
That's a 9. Chris Boisvert. Give the $95 skin to Bill Hart on the strike. After a 5-box carryover. And Chris will take a look at the high-low jack here. Ooh, almost. 9-box. We go to the 5th, which will be worth $15. And the scores
Getting closer by the box.
very, very close now. Wide open here.
Bill Hart's got the strike working. He could climb very close to Pat Pay.
Pat will have a spare leave this time.
3, 6, and 10. Piece of wood behind the 3.
No. Another open box for Pat. 10. 54 at the halfway point. He was at 88 at this juncture in the first game. Bill Hart on his strike. Just a tiny bit short that time, only by a fraction.
And he has to watch out that the wood doesn't cost him the 4-pin.
No, he knew he had pulled it as soon as he threw it. 9 fill in the strike. And Bill and Pat are now dead even at 197. Cumulative scores for the 2 games at the bottom of the screen.
But no marks up. If Paul and Chris were to put one up, the scores are going to get even closer. Paul's got a tough one. The 1, 2, 8, and 9.
Yes, he got it.
What's so tough about that, Dan? No problem there. Drives the head pin straight back into the 9. Gets the 2-pin to come off the wall for the 8.
Possible skin for Paul unless Chris can answer.
Oh, it looked like he was going to be left with a 4, 6, 7, 10. Kicked out the 6 and then finally the 10.
The spare, yes, for the carryover. And that will take us to the break, and those scores are going to get even tighter when we come back for the final 5 boxes. Good match going on Candlepin Skins. Well, during that break, we went back and reviewed the tape and discovered that Paul Willitts in the 4th box actually had a legal 10 box. Appeared to be a tie goes to the runner situation with a piece of wood in the channel and a fair piece of wood. So give Paul Willitts a 10 box in the 4th. So he is now 57 through 4 with a spare up in the 5th. Did not affect the skin in that box.
Pat all of a sudden can't buy a mark.
But he can buy a 10. He's had several of those.
It's funny how it goes. The first game, we had almost no carryovers at all. And now we've only had 1 skin 1 the second game.
This is a $30 skin, by the way, here in the 6th.
Billy Hart missing to the left. 1, 3, 7, and 10.
If Bill's been doing anything today, Dan, it's pulling the ball to the left.
Right.
The left.
Lift. Left. Lots of lift.
Played right into my hands.
Oh, did you see the 7th?
Wow.
It jumped up in the air and it didn't go down. I don't think a replay. Watch this. Watch the 7-pin.
Oh. That's about as high as we've ever seen a pin jump without falling. Wow.
It's the bowling goblins down there. And those pins that jump up and down.
Paul Willitts fills a spare with 5. Remember, the computer now reflects that scoring change, giving Paul a 10 in the 4th box, and he nearly pulled off a great shot there.
Good effort there. Needs this to create a possible carryover. But Chris Boisvert still has to complete the 6th frame.
Here's the shot he made, trying for the spare.
That's the 3-pin. Just catches the 7, just missing the 4.
Chris Boisvert on a mark. And with a chance for a strike, and he's got it and wins the skin.
Not only that, pulls himself a lot closer to the top position.
This match almost couldn't be any closer right now with these 4 bowlers, as Chris gets the break to kick out the corner pins.
207 for Pat, 206 for Bill, 205 for Chris, but he's working on a strike, and 195 for Paul. Not out of it by any means.
2 pins separating first and third right now.
Pat Pay will be open in the 7th. 6 consecutive open boxes for Pat.
And a 7. That's his second 7 box this game. Now Bill Hart. Bill works as a manager for the Star Market Company. He's from Pepperell, Mass.
And he'll shoot at the 2, 6, and 3, 6, and 10. A piece of wood. You almost have to take a piece of the wood and the 3-pin.
Yes.
Very nicely done, and a much-needed mark in the 7th.
Eighth mark of the day for Bill Hart. He leads in that department. Actually shares the lead. Chris Boisvert also has 8.
Now the 2, 5, and 8 pins for Paul. Always a difficult spare with a sleeper in the back.
Nope.
Have to be full to carry the 8. If you're too full, like as that was, you leave the 5. But if you cut it anymore, you leave the 8. So works it out for a 10. Spare is up for the skin. Total pinfall is just up for grabs.
All the way around.
That's right.
Anybody could finish first to fourth right now.
Chris working on a strike.
Came up a little bit short on the delivery, but well, let's see.
Now he's going to play the wood next to the 1 and the 2, but the ball's going to fly. He's going to have trouble with one or the other of the corner pins.
Or both.
Yes.
So give the skin to Bill Hart. $25. He's now up to $170. And a 10 box for Chris.
Always important, those 10 boxes. Gives him the lead. 223.
Snapping that wood over there.
You'd think Pat Pay would be due. It's open for 6 consecutive boxes in this game. Well, looks like he came up short again in that lane. 1, 7, 8, and 9.
I believe that piece of wood is in play, but it'll be close. Can't quite see the line on the screen. I'm not sure if it's in a good enough spot that Pat would use it anyway, but it's going to be out of play, just as Dan Murphy said it would.
My eyes are lousy, but these glasses really help. Pat continues to struggle.
Takes a 9.
Billy Hart working on the only spare in the 7th. And he'll fill that right now.
Seven.
I think I want to take a piece of that wood, drive it right straight through the wood into the 2-pin, and hopefully I'll grab the 4 also. Threw it in front of the 10. Great try.
Nine box. Couple of 9s up there here in the 8th, which is a $25 skin.
That puts him 9 ahead of Pat, as you can see.
We're going to be doing a lot of quick math here in the last few boxes, I think,
Sure.
with these scores this
Thank
close.
goodness we got that running total at the bottom. Thank you, Alden Warner. Coffee score.
Indeed.
Let's see who that wood settles down for Paul. Oh, he doesn't want that second piece to roll off. The other one rolled in the channel, so this could snap out for him.
Yes. Spare for Paul Willitts. And he was running in 4th. That could put him into 2nd if he throws a big fill. Or at least into 3rd. But he could go from 4th to 2nd on the full ball when he comes up next time.
Chris missing the headpin, but boy, he blew 8 of them out of there, leaving just the 1 and the 3.
Chance to create a carryover.
But more important, it's going to keep him in the lead for total pinfall. Ooh.
No.
Hang.
Oh, how about it for Pat? Oh, nice try. Boy, Pat Pay, Dan, started with 4 marks in a row. At the beginning of this match, he went spare strike, spare strike. He has only 2 marks since then. And he is in danger of not coming back next week unless he throws something in the 10th.
I was going to say if Bill or Chris were to put a mark up here in the 9th, that would probably assure them of one of the top spots, but not necessarily. This is too close to call. You certainly don't want a bad box. Bill clears out the right side on the spread eagle. Now he'll try to go for the left side, and no, just 8. That puts Pat Pay within 7 of him. Pat leads with a 10 for the skin. 4th place is up now, Paul, but he's working on the spare.
We tape Candlepin Skins, of course, here at the Londonderry Bowling Center, which is now the home to Puzzles Bar and Grill. Oh, so while you're here, you can stop in for lunch, dinner, beverages, right here at Puzzles Bar and Grill inside the Londonderry Bowling Center.
Now, Paul only filled it with a 5. So he's going to need some help from 2 of the bowlers in this final frame, meaning a bad box. Creates the possible carryover, the 2 10s now, Pat and Paul. Here's the 230.
Here's the 10 box on the 110.
And he is 10 pins behind Bill Hart. There was a pin missing on lane 30, and Chris will reset.
Boy, you know, if Chris is open here in the 9th, Dan, there'll be less than 10 or maybe 10, maximum. 11, 12 pins between 1st and 4th going into the last box. $25 skin here in the 9th.
But with a mark, it would be huge.
Oh, my. Never mind a mark now. Just worry about it's getting out of the box.
That's right. You don't want, you know, say 7 or less. You don't want that to happen. There's too many people within a mark.
Oh, what a mark. Wow.
Are you kidding
saw
me?
Chris's reaction.
Oh.
He loved it. What a mark there. Takes the skin also in the 9th, $25. But more importantly, puts himself in a good spot for returning.
Now he leads by 2 pins, but he'll have that ball working.
Pat Pay must mark, and he throws a big 9-drop. He's missed 2 singles already today. Must have this one. No. Wow.
He couldn't miss the first half of that first game, and you wonder what happens. Just a 99 game for Pat.
242. That will not be good enough.
No, down to 3 now. With Bill and Chris being in the driver's seat, Bill being ahead by 10. So if he can put a mark up, and he's got a good shot at one, Paul would have to double strike.
Last skin of the day, by the way, here for $50. No. Well, that leaves Paul in it.
Now this is a big pin here because it would take a 20 bucks to tie.
There it is. 112.
So Paul needs a spare, strike, strike, spare, something like that to tie. double strike plus the win.
And if Paul does get 20 pins here in the 10th and Chris gets more than 8, we could have a tie for second again.
Right. That's right.
Like we had a couple of weeks ago.
Although Chris is working on a spare, so gives him a little bit of an advantage there. Paul Willitts needs a double mark. Oh boy, it's going to be a tough one. He needs this and then a strike on it.
He made it! Got it! Big spare in the 10th.
Needs a strike to tie Bill Hart. Also puts him in the lead for the $50 skin. He needs them all.
Yep. Pretty good looking ball. And it will not happen for him. A 7 fill, a 134 for Paul Willitts, 247. And it's going to be Bill Hart and Chris Boisvert officially as soon as Chris fills this mark.
You'd like to fill it with a strike to win the final skin.
Let's see. Well, now he's going to have to make the diamond to create a carryover and keep everybody alive. Otherwise, it'll go to Paul Willitts. Boy, Paul gave it a scare there. He needed the strike to create a possible tie for second. And there's the spare. That keeps everybody in the final skin. It'll also give Chris Boisvert the overall victory, making the diamond. $133 plus a ball. And add 6 more for a 139, 264. Now we will keep going. And Pat and Bill will step right back up as we have to settle this final skin now. So we'll go to our 2-bowler at a time format here as we try and settle this last skin of the day. It's worth $50. Chris Boisvert and Bill Hart will be returning next week. I say, wouldn't it be ironic if Pat threw a strike now after everything that happened to him in that second game? Half Worcester for Bill Hart. Oh, how about it?
Oh!
That gets the spare. And Bill is out of it. He's throwing this last ball, but he really doesn't have to, because he is out of it for the skin. Paul and Chris will now step up to see if they can match Pat's spare. Remember, if there is a carryover, only the guys that are involved in the carryover will continue. Here in extra time. Oh, look out. Almost a strike. I would say probably going to have a carryover here, Dan.
I would say there's a good possibility of that.
There it is. Paul is still alive.
Chris would have to make this to keep his chances alive, so that
He
puts
is
him
not.
out of it.
So it will be Pat Pay and Paul Willitts up on the lanes now to settle this final skin. There'll be no fill here in terms of the score, as we're just bowling one box at a time. Paul to go first. This is something that would be fun to try at your local league. Head-to-head, both on the lanes at the same time. Best score in the frame gets $50.